Welcome back. Today we're going to discuss on attention management at a tutorials point video tutorials column. Moving on to understand what this topic is all about, that is attention management introduction. So if I have to define attention management more on definition front, or to put it in a very simpler form, attention management has its own models and tools to help a management on an individual level or a collective level to understand the attention span of a employee or a person. Let's see what we have in store for us from the course overview. Attention management introduction, what causes attention deficient and attention deficiency at workplace. Four kinds of attentive people. We will stick to the fact why we have four different kind of people who come into this category of attention. Thinking less leads to attention. This is something we all have to abide by as a rule book. Moving on, types of attention, activity to improve attentiveness, attention zone model. Keeping yourself focused. Why people procrastinate? Because we are linking procrastination, unproductivity, and unproductive experience as such, to relate to the very topic of attention management. How to overcome procrastination, prioritizing your time, that is, they're managing your time well, and then we conclude with the topic. Moving on, what causes attention deficient? Multiple reasons again. Maybe you're watching the video right now and you're deficient in your attention span for reasons such as there's something internal block, internally something happening in your mind. Maybe there's a doorbell ringing at your home and you're not able to sort of concentrate whether you continue watching this video or go and sort of answer the person who is at the door. It could be as simple as that, there are many things running in your mind, maybe to take a task later part of the day, or maybe to take up something tomorrow, maybe a future plan, maybe a past that is impacting a lot in my thinking. And the present era that we are in, that is digital world, it could be social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We all have this zeal, we all have this addiction towards being there, very active, and getting addicted to the social media platforms. So one important task that I would like to recommend is be off from these distraction, and have a calculative number, maybe like a 24 hours or 48 hours, and see is it helping in your productivity or it is not helping. But try and do explore the reasoning that I have given you just now. Moving on, attention deficiency at workplace, again multiple reasons. Reason could be something that you have real less patience level. It could be as simple as that a person who's seated opposite to you and has a high decibel level and the person talks and you get distracted. It could be something like an employee who comes and sits next to the your colleague's desk and they are high on the conversation and volume level. We might end up getting distracted, and all these are very common and natural reasons to get distracted. So how, and these are it's a very ideal scenario to think that a person should maintain his or her volume level. A person should be mindful about the fact that the person is working. So we all encounter these situations in our daily life where people are not sensitive, and yes, it doesn't really matter to them if they carry civic sense or they incorporate civic sense in each approach or each conversation they have. The only thing to remember and keep reminding yourself is having that at a conscious level, you remind yourself and you train your brain to be more open and more effective towards the task that you are at, or maybe to focus at the work, the work what you're doing. Next slide, four kinds of attentive people: intentional, responsive, interrupted, and unproductive. To talk about unproductive set of people, they are least concerned about what's happening across, and they're very focused on their task. They're very productive in what they're trying to achieve, without a second thought in the mind with regard to the environmental concerns that they are facing. Moving on, thinking less leads to attention. Now this is one of the rule book, like I said, to follow, and I personally try and incorporate in my life, but it's quite challenging in a way, because it's each time a reminder to your brain that you think less and you're attentive and you can action the task well. To discuss this further, what is most important is having not just zeal about completion of the task, maybe a small reminder and small reward for your own self each time you complete a task. And this reward can actually boost your productivity, can boost your motivation, your morale level, and this again turns out to be a habit, and this can eventually help us to be a person to think less, because by then the multiple times I've trained my brain, I master at it, and I can take care of my emotions, I can balance my emotions well, I can enable myself to be more productive. Moving on, types of attention, focused attention, sustained attention, and selective attention. Now, selective attention is one of the most keyword to go by. I selectively make a conscious effort of being attentive at certain segments of my daily conversation, or maybe certain parts of the day that I am heavily focused on, maybe in a certain group setting that I'm heavily focused on. So the word selective itself means being conscious selectively to be attentive at a particular time or at a particular set of event. Moving on, meditation improves attention. Now this is a research, a fact, a statement, and a phrase by itself to believe on. So meditation actually has a theory behind it. It's about your me time. So you connect yourself, that is, you talk to your own soul, you talk to yourself with regard to being who you are, and it's a self-talk basically. And we recommend you go ahead, sort of start off with meditation, and I would personally like to hear it in the comment box if this has worked for you, and if you're finding it in any challenges in order to incorporate it, do write it back and let us know. So initially I would recommend, don't do it by yourself. You can certainly do it under somebody's supervision. So a typical yoga center or a yoga class or yoga institute would have these setting, and then you can move on to do it by yourself. If you are firm and confident, you can start doing it right away, or maybe some corner in your room or some corner at your house where you just close your eyes and you're by yourself completely, devoting off all the distractions, maybe the noise, the background noise that you see, the filtering that you have in the mind, the conditioning blocks that you have in your mind of you've been overthinking a certain fact and you're not able to concentrate. So you have to really devote off completely and just give yourself 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Start off with a 5 minute, and then you can move on to the number of minutes that you desire for. It's always said that it's really good to feed your body, and through meditation you can actually take care of it from a level of not just experiencing good attention span, but also more from a habit front. Moving on, next slide, activity to improve attentiveness. That same thing, meditation and visualization. So partially I would say visualization is a technique of meditation itself, because in meditation, of course, you don't have to think heavily, you don't necessarily have to think about it, but we do encounter certain images that flashes our mind. Visualization is something on similar lines. So if you have a task, if you have a challenge that you've been facing of late, and you've been challenged at your workplace, and you want to really sit down, settle down with yourself, and want to visualize how to approach a particular task, a event, or a situation, all you have to do is just recall all pictorial form of images in your mind, and educate your mind that this is how you'd like to approach and take the task forward. Next slide, attention zones model. Now this is again a research work done by a lot of psychologists and a lot of school of thoughts, where they have come up stating that reactive zone, proactive zone, distracted zone, and wasteful zone. Now these are 4 different zones. If I have to really categorize and put across why the attention span is limited for all of us, and why attention span increases in certain zone. It could be certain part of the day as well. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to what I'm talking. There are certain segments or parts of day where we feel jolly productive, very active, or maybe we are proactive too, or maybe we go down in terms of being submissive. Go back, relate, and try and jot down few notes under these zones of attention, and see if you can interrelate and transfer few responses from distracted zone to, or maybe a proactive zone, because eventually we all have to move towards being proactive, maybe reactive at times when it is needed. Next slide, keeping yourself focused, most important task. Now, it's challenging as well, not that it's not challenging. So how do I keep focused? Just keep away from all sort of distraction, your social media, your digital options that you see, or maybe, a constant group, a comfort group that you always, feel comfortable interacting, talking, or maybe you can actually forego an important task just because you see a couple of, friends or, family members who like to walk in and probably have a discussion with you. So we do not have that, criticality in the mind that I have to complete this task and then probably interact with the person, but I can seriously devote off, because the kind of priority we have given about this person or a family member in our life is really high. Moving on, why people procrastinate. Now, I really wish I could answer this question, because we all go through the stages. So, procrastination is basically to avoid the completion of the task. Maybe you're hesitant to take up this task. Maybe you have got this as a habit. I wouldn't say it is genetic by nature, but certainly through the environment. One of these reasons that, we end up procrastinating it. Next slide, how to overcome procrastination. So if you have recognized, and I'm sure we all procrastinate, so let's all assume in all positivity that we are procrastinators, and few people are chronic, that is they have high intensity of level of procrastination, even for a slightest or the smallest a task or an event. To understand how to overcome, we generally have this tendency of moving on something like for tomorrow or next week or next month. Try and analyze and gauge the criticality attached to this particular task. It could be as simple as probably paying an electricity bill. So we have certain association that your electricity would be disconnected, and there's certain penalty charges. You have to again sort of coordinate and go ahead and pay. Again, there could be all possibility of a long queue, a huge queue, at least the context of here in India that I'm talking about. So moving on, understand the criticality aspect, and then disassociate this particular feeling of procrastination from your mind and thought. This will certainly help you from a psychological level, that avoiding procrastination can make you more productive, happy and successful as a person. Next slide, prioritizing your time. Attention span leads directly towards how do I prioritize my time? What are the tasks that I have to really put in a bucket to complete at one go, and what are the tasks that I can actually forego, probably do it a little later part, or maybe I do it at a level of not giving that real importance, or maybe I like to delegate this as a task. So start off with something like a typical to-do list. I remember reading this Harvard research work, where they came up with a concept called 3, 5 and 2. That is the most important task, 3 in number is something you can mention in the to-do list, and the next most important, which is 5 tasks, and then the least important, which are your 2 tasks. Try and see if you can explore this as an option, and I'm sure it will be really good and handy, because it's the research work, and personally I have done it as well. So the most important challenge over here is to analyze and prioritize those most 3 important tasks of the day, followed it with the next most important task. So always associate task with criticality and the repercussions that you might end up facing. Moving on, conclusion. So, what do you want to conclude through this learning? I would really like to hear in the comment box, and I like to initiate my conversation with you. I am hopeful and I'm positive that the couple of information that we have discussed today would come in handy with you all, and that can also help you to be more productive and more successful in life. Thank you for watching.